Bharatanatyam, which I teach, is very grounded and rigid. Kathak, which comes from Northwest India, is very twirly and there's a lot of spins and a lot of intricate footwork. The Odissi, which comes from the east of India, it has very sumptuous poses and hip movements that are very characteristic of that dance form. Kuchipudi, which is also from the south of India, is very dramatic. Mohiniyattam, which is another South Indian dance form, is very graceful and slow. So there's many different kinds of Indian classical dance forms, and each one is very distinctive.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Spotlight Houston, where we bring you the best of the people, places, and events in Houston. This week we sat down with Dr. Lavanya Rajagopalan, founder of Silambam Houston, a celebrated classical Indian dance organization. Learn how Silambam Houston is making a big impact in our community through dance and cultural outreach. We also discussed the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund's Cultural Treasures Acceleration Initiative and how it supports organizations like Silambam Houston. This is episode 92 with an original air date of Monday, June 17, 2024. And now your host, Blanca Quezada.
Recently, BANF's Cultural Treasure Acceleration Initiative awarded grants to local BIPOC artists and art organizations in Houston. BIPOC, if you haven't heard, are art organizations that provide unique opportunities to Black, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islanders, Middle Eastern, North African, Arabs, or other communities of color, which serve in our 9 counties here in the greater Houston area. And this initiative is recognizing and empowering these art organizations to transform and guide artists to fulfill their dreams. One of these organizations that was awarded a beautiful grant was Silambam Houston, recognized as one of Houston's cultural treasures since 2002. And so they also help promote and develop a lot of unity in the community, which is great because we are a very diverse community and we need to get to know each other and all cultures. And what a great way to get to know this particular organization. So joining me today is Dr. Lavanya, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, Lavanya Rajagopalan, founder of Silambam Houston, where dancers learn Indian classical dance. And I think it's beautiful. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Blanca.
How did your journey begin into this dancing world?
When I was 5 years old, a child growing up in India, in Chennai, India. Chennai is in the south of India, and it's the hub, the birthplace of everything Indian classical. And so when I was a child growing up in Chennai, at the age of 5, I watched a weekly series on Bharatanatyam, which is the art form that I eventually trained in. This was produced and presented on the national television channel by my future teacher, Sudharani Raghupati, Professor Sudharani Raghupati. And I fell in love with the art form while watching that series. Every Sunday morning, I'd be glued to the TV, and I fell in love with the art form. And I fell in love with the teacher teaching it as well. And I wanted to join her, and eventually I did. And I've trained with her ever since, and it's been about 36 years now.
Wow. I danced the Mexican folkloric dancing, so I know what that takes, and I only danced for about 10 years, and I enjoyed it immensely. But so I understand that need to be that creative with dance art. So you trained for so many years, and you instilled in a lot of movements were instilled in you, and that you've passed on, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Your acclaimed performances and choreographies are well known both in India and the United States. How have these experiences influence your approach to dance and choreography?
Dance has always been an integral part of my life. I can't remember a day in which dance wasn't part of it and wasn't an important part of it. 30 years ago in India, or anywhere for that matter, being an artist wasn't exactly considered a full-time profession. And so I necessarily went to school and did something else. And in my case, the something else was biology. I majored in biology. I did a master's in microbiology. I came here, in fact, to do a PhD in biochemistry and biophysics, which I have. But when I came here, as long as I was in India, I was always in touch with dance. That every afternoon I would go to dance class. I would be able to be in touch with the art form and perform very regularly. But when I moved here, those opportunities weren't there. I felt that void. And so in 2001, I moved here. In 2002, I decided to start teaching here. So there were a few students, or a few children of Indian families who were interested in learning Indian classical dance. So I started teaching in my little apartment clubhouse. It was available to use for the tenants of the apartment. And that's how Silambam started in 2002. And gradually and completely organically, it has grown from there to now we have close to 200 students. And we teach not just the one dance form that I am trained in, but we teach 4 or 5. Actually, we're adding a 5th dance form right now. And also we teach Indian classical music in 2 different styles, as well as percussion in 2 different styles, and violin and another instrument, as well as yoga.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And the Indian community here is pretty large, so we should learn a little bit more about the culture and somehow be a part of it. But you were talking about different forms of dancing, and yours is more classical. So as an outsider that really doesn't know too much of your culture, how do we know the difference in the dance forms?
Yes, so actually the several dance forms I mentioned are all classical. In India, there are 9 different recognized classical dance forms, each of which is unique, with unique costuming, unique jewelry, unique movements. There's a distinct flavor to each one of these classical dance forms. I think it comes from the fact that India is not one homogeneous country. Basically, multiple kingdoms from the ancient times put together into one country, united as a country. But each region of India retains the flavors of those ancient kingdoms and peoples. And so not many people know that there are 200 languages spoken in India. And every region has its own food, its own culture, its own art forms as well. And so, for example, Bharatanatyam, which I teach, is very grounded and rigid. Kathak, which comes from Northwest India, is very twirly, and there's a lot of spins and a lot of intricate footwork. The Odissi, which comes from the east of India, it has very sumptuous poses and hip movements that are very characteristic of that dance form. Kuchipudi, which is also from the south of India, is very dramatic. Mohiniyattam, which is another South Indian dance form, is very graceful and slow. So there's many different kinds of Indian classical dance forms, and each one is very distinctive.
Yeah, is the music I like a lot of the music because a lot of the music seems to be very calm, and it takes you into like a mystical world. And I think it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and you can meditate to it and just calm down, and I think it's great. But I think also here in the United States, I don't know, please correct me if I'm wrong, people tend to think more of the Indian music because of some of the Indian movies that get shown here, the dancing and the singing. And I think that's what people are more familiar with.
One of the common questions I get, even yesterday, there was a student a family that came into the studio and asked, did we teach dance? And I said, yes. And they go, oh, is it Bollywood? And I said, no, absolutely not. We don't teach Bollywood, and we don't teach, that's pop. It's not classical. There's some derivation of classical in Bollywood dance and music, but it's definitely more a popular culture phenomenon than a classical arts phenomenon.
Yeah, but Bollywood is fun too.
It is fun. It definitely is. But my goal is to show audiences and students that Indian classical arts is so deep and rich and diverse, and a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, and
beautiful.
You just had an event at the Miller Theater Outdoor, and so I know that everybody was really happy with the performance.
Yes, it was very well received. And this is sort of emblematic of what we try to do. Sometimes we do a completely traditional music and dance performance, but this one is a little bit more reaching out to other cultures and sort of connecting other cultures. It's a collaboration between four different ensembles. We had an Indian classical music ensemble, we had a Baroque music ensemble, we had a Baroque dance company, and we had our own Bharatanatyam dancers. And so the entire performance was just conversations between these different art forms. The Carnatic, the Indian classical music musicians conversing with the Baroque musicians, the Indian classical musicians conversing with the Indian classical dancers, the Baroque musicians and dancers talking to each other, and then also like cross-cultural dialogue between these Western and Eastern art forms. And it was really very well received. I've had glowing messages of support from everyone that came to see it or watched it online. And this is sort of what we try to do, right? Like bring Indian art out into the universal psyche and raise the profile of Indian arts by making new audiences aware of what it is that we do and how we relate to other cultures and other art forms.
Yeah. That's why you've been recognized as one of Houston's cultural treasures.
That's
right.
We're so thrilled. Yes, we're so thrilled to have that recognition. Huge thanks to BIPOC Arts Network and Fund for creating these opportunities, first of all, for BIPOC artists, and then for validating the work that some of us are doing in the field to build the profile of BIPOC artists, BIPOC arts, and just create community using our art forms.
So through these art forms, are you providing education about your culture to the dancers?
We are a fairly unique Indian classical arts organization in that we do multiple things under our umbrella. So first and foremost, we are an arts academy. So we teach music and dance, like all these different music and dance forms. And we have all the students come through weekly for classes. So that's one major part of our operation. But another part of our operation is outreach. In fact, just this morning, I was at Texas Children's Hospital with a program that we have called Storytime with Silambam that we present through young audiences of Houston. And I was there telling stories to children in the patient waiting room at Texas Children's Hospital using Indian dance to tell both our own stories from my culture, from Indian culture, but also having the patients there, my audience, create stories of their own. So once upon a time, there was a princess. So I show them what a princess looks like in Indian classical dance. And then they build the story. And then I bring it to life using hand gestures and facial expression. And it was a little break in their day while waiting to go to their doctor's appointments. And it was a very fulfilling experience for me as well this morning. And I'm hoping, and I think that it was a good distraction for the patients and their families as they waited for their turn to go to the doctor's office at Texas Children's. And we take that performance, Storytime with Silambam, we do it in libraries and museums. We also have other outreach programs that are geared to do different things. So we do a program called Dance Across India, where we basically take elementary class 3 across India using our different dance forms. So here we are in South India, and then we show them a South Indian dance form. We move to Northwest India, we talk about the people and the culture there and show them Kathak, which comes from that part of India. And then we move over to East India and so on. And then another performance we do is called Dancing into STEM. And this comes from my experience both as a researcher, as a scientist, and as a dancer. So we use Indian classical music and dance to communicate basic concepts in STEM education. So science, technology, engineering, math. So we're talking about germination or metamorphosis or fractions or solar system. How do we have days and nights and those kinds of things. And so,
yeah. And when do you provide these educational classes?
So we present them through young audiences of Houston and outside of that. So they're on our website. So people do contact us either directly or through young audiences and request us to come out and perform. So we do that during the school day in schools. We do that in summer in libraries. We do throughout the year, actually, in libraries and museums and community centers and so on.
So you provide special programming during the summer?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I'm sure that they love it.
Oh, yes. It's always a big hit when we go something different. And students don't even understand that they're learning something about STEM. it's a science class, but it's still movement and rhythm and gestures and expression. So it's much more fun than just sitting down
Right.
learning about how a
Right.
seed becomes a flat, right?
And they retain that information a lot easier and quicker than somebody just trying to explain to them.
Exactly. And I've done this both here in the United States in schools as well as in India in schools, and it's always like so well received.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you have other classes that you're providing for the summer in your studio?
So our studio, we are currently gearing up to do our annual student showcase. And this year, our student showcase has something like 110 or 115 performers. And that happens at the end of June, the third week of June. And so we're gearing up for that. And once we finish that student showcase, we all sort of take a break for about 6 weeks and we come back in August, mostly because most people are off in July anyway. And we could have classes, but it wouldn't be quite the thing. Half the students may not be there and then we'd have to catch them up. So we just have July off. Sometimes we do some summer camps. This year we haven't planned on any, mainly because our June and early July is extremely busy. We have, outside of our classes and everything, we also do presentations and productions. And so multiple things are happening every week. Like last week, we had the Baroque Carnatic Connection. I had a studio performance on the very next day. I have a studio performance this Saturday, another student performance next Saturday. So there's just a lot going on in terms of performance. And that's one other thing we do. So we have our Arts Academy, we have our outreach, we do performance, and then we present visiting artists as well. And so some of those things happen in summer, but classes are generally on hiatus for the month of July.
Wow. Are you taking any more students?
We currently do have registration open for our fall, art year that begins in the fall. And we already have several registrations and we have been growing rapidly over the past several years. And it's all been completely organic. We don't actually advertise. We haven't told anyone that our registration is open. We already have 25 registrations in there. And we still our own current students have to re-enroll and that hasn't even happened yet. So it's just an organic word of mouth thing and we keep growing. And so, yes, we are currently enrolling for the fall and we will close registration sometime in mid-July and then consolidate and create our rosters and start classes in August.
Yeah. And not all of you, I'm sure that not all of your students are Indian.
No, they're not actually. Of late, we've had a lot more inquiries from outside of the Indian diaspora. So we have several students who are half Indian and half some other nationality, some other ethnicity. We have students of all. We have a Korean student, we have an African American student, we have, a white Caucasian student. We're starting to see interest among a lot of different ethnicities and nationalities.
Oh, that's great news. That's great news because we all need to get to know each other's cultures. And
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I've seen, like in dancing, I've seen that different cultures have kind of the same gestures. And so we're not that much difference.
The language of expression and emotion is universal. Human emotion is, so we all share the same feelings. So when it comes to expressive dance, that's sort of the closest you can get to a universal language, yes? So it's definitely, and the students we have that come from other cultures really enjoy being a part of our classes and learning this culture and learning these art forms. We also have it's not just students from other cultures, but we also have differently abled students as well. So I teach a completely nonverbal student who is on the severe side of the autism spectrum. And she absolutely enjoys, she's completely nonverbal, but she has all these words in her head. So I actually asked her mother she's about 20 years old. And I asked her mother to work with her speech therapist to she has with letterboard and she spells out letters on it to communicate her feeling. And she was asked, what do you think about your dance class? And she said, I love my dance class. I'm blessed to be a part of it. And it was so self-affirming and so wonderful to hear her.
How inspiring. Yeah, how inspiring. That's almost like a miracle happening for somebody like that to really enjoy it and And
She
you're
enjoys
making
it so much. She will not miss a class. She doesn't miss a single performance. She shows up to every single one of her performances. She's not verbal, but she has all of the thoughts and words inside her head. She just can't articulate them verbally. But using her letterboard, she's able to spell out the words and tell us what she feels. And I've been teaching her for 3 years. But when I saw what she was spelling out on her letterboard just this past week, I was blown away. I didn't know she had all those thoughts and feelings swimming around in her head that she wasn't able to verbally tell us. But I know she always walks into class with a smile. She's always so excited to be there. And she comes to every performance, every show, everything. She loves being in the studio, loves being in our performance.
That's great that you're making such a big difference. We're just one person like that.
Oh, it's actually the highlight of my week. Like, it's a 45-minute class per week. But I absolutely love it. No matter what else is happening, I will make time for that class because it's my little break from everything else that's going on.
How old do your students have to be to participate in your dance classes?
We ask that a student completes her 5th birthday before joining us. And so we have students from the age of 5 up to the age of 55 and 60. Like, we have adults.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, that's just great. So what do you plan on doing with the grant that you received?
Very good question. It was a transformational grant. And again, it's just amazing work that the BIPOC Arts Network and Fund is doing. They chose 11 Houston organizations to receive this grant. And for us, it was absolutely a transformational amount of money. What we have done with it is in 2020, we broke ground on our facility, and we have built the whole facility dedicated to Indian arts. It's in Pearland, and it has an ATC black box theater in addition to classrooms and studio spaces and all of them.
Oh.
And so, of course, we have a mortgage, and so we used part of the grant to pay down some of that mortgage, and we used part of the grant to put it away in an endowment so that it can earn more money, and we can use that to fund additional programs. We do tuition waivers for students in need. We do student discounts for students who can't quite afford the tuition, or we do free tickets, performances with completely free ticketing or pay what you can ticketing. And so any grant that we are able to get goes toward creating accessible, equitable programs that people can access no matter what their geography is or what their financial situation is. We try to make it so that anyone can access it, and there shouldn't be any obstacle to them being able to access our arts programs, whether it's education or performance.
Do you happen to have a website that people can visit for more details or information, or just to register for a class?
Yeah, absolutely. The website is www.silambamhouston.org. That's www.silambamhouston.org. And you said register for a class. We don't quite do register for one class. We do ask for, because these are classical arts, one class is not going to teach you anything.
Right.
So we ask people to give us a call or shoot us an email through the website, and then we will have a conversation. And then we generally try to ask people to have like a few months of commitment just to see if it works for them. And then that way we can teach you in depth these things rather than trying to cram years worth of learning into one class, right? That doesn't quite work with, it's like you can't take one ballet class. You can't take one classical dance class.
Right. So do you happen to have a phone number where people can call you?
Sure, 713-635-9382.
Great. And I know you're in Pearland, but where in Pearland are you located at?
So our main studio is in Pearland on SM 518, which is called Broadway in Pearland. And it's on the east side of Pearland, close to the intersection of Broadway and Dixie Farm. But we also have branches in the Heights area. So we have one on Shepherd Drive in the Heights, and then one closer to I-10 in the Heights area.
So you're making it convenient for the whole city.
That's right. We also actually have students in College Station in California and that do virtual classes with us. So we have students all over the country who do virtual classes with us. Virtual classes are a little bit hard. We sort of expanded those through the pandemic, as most people have. But
Yeah.
written classes are a little harder to be effective, especially for younger students. So for those, we ask to have a conversation with the parent and the student before we agree to do a virtual class.
Yeah, with virtual classes, you don't get the whole experience.
Exactly. Plus,
Yeah.
being in Silambam, being a student of Silambam is not just learning the art, it's being part of the family. And you don't have that experience unless you are coming into the studio and sort of being part of
Right, getting to know everybody. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I have so many more questions for you, but I'm running out of time. So can you give us your website one more time?
www.silambamhouston.org. SILAMBAM Houston.org.
Well, thank you so very much. And I'm sure that people are probably going to visit your website, especially to find out more about your upcoming events at the end of June, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a massive student showcase with over 100 performers in 10 different classical arts disciplines. It's going to be, well, currently it's chaos, but it's going to end up being beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful, especially with the costumes and everything that you have, that the colors are so vibrant. They remind me of the colors in Mexico because they're just vibrant.
With full, vibrant colors, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you again and congratulations for everything that you've been doing for our community.
Thank you.
And good luck with the event too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Blanca. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. And thank you all for joining me as well. And if you have any comments or you have any story ideas, please get in touch.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gabby, your AI host. There was a lot of great info in today's episode. Houston has many distinguished treasures, and today on Spotlight Houston, we discover how BIPOC Arts Network and Fund's BANF Cultural Treasure Acceleration Initiative recognizes some of Houston's art BIPOC organizations. They provide unique opportunities to Black, Indigenous, Asian, Middle Eastern, African, Pacific Islanders, or other communities of color in 9 counties in the greater Houston area. In their last funding cycle, BANF named 11 organizations as Houston Cultural Treasures, awarding them $5 million in funding over 2 years. Silambam Houston was one of these honored organizations. Each organization received a multi-year general operating grant ranging from $100,000 to $500,000. They also received opportunities for experimentation and capacity building through a 2-year learning cohort. Dr. Lavanya Rajagopalan, founder of Silambam Houston, sat down with us to discuss the contributions being made by this Indian artistic organization. She explains why she founded her classical Indian dance studio, where she now has over 100 students learning this beautiful dance art. Dr. Rajagopalan explains that at Silambam, she seeks to increase appreciation and understanding of Indian artistic traditions across cultural boundaries. She is doing this through comprehensive art education, outreach, and exceptional arts, as well as by creating opportunities for young artists to develop, perform, and collaborate. She also talks about all the programs offered by the Academy, up to the dance company and upcoming special events. To learn more about Silambam Houston and its cultural contribution to Houston, please visit www.silambamhouston.org or call 713-635-9382. Remember, Spotlight Houston episodes now drop every Monday. Tune in next week for more engaging stories celebrating our city's vibrant spirit. Do you have an idea or feedback? We're always listening. Follow us on social media and leave us a rating or a review on your favorite podcatcher. Spotlight Houston is a production of Story Zone Media.